Okay, so you want to open your data in SPSS. First of all, you'll be able to do this remotely at CUNY. There's a CUNY virtual desktop that if you use your CUNY First ID, you should be able to download the virtual desktop and open it. And then from there, you can open the SPSS application. Now I want to warn you as far as saving, I don't know about your computer, but on my computer, which is a Mac, so I had to use the VMware, there's no way for me to hook up the USB, but my Dropbox was accessible online. So I was able to use the internet and save it onto my Dropbox, the output. And remember, you'll want to save your data and your output, and you can also export your output into a PDF file so that it's easier to get to. So if you export into a PDF file, you can get to your output without having to open SPSS every time. So when you're writing up your paper, you can just open the PDF and cut and paste things from that into your paper, which is a little easier. So this is how you'd want to open SPSS. Now, I have SPSS on my computer. So for some of you who might be having to open your data from an Excel sheet, I'm going to show you how to do this. But if you're from the online class, you should be able to open it directly because Qualtrics has downloaded it as an SPSS. But for those of you who did not download it as an SPSS, this is how you open it from Excel. So I have example data. I'm going to open a file. If you open SPSS from scratch, it'll ask you to open new data, and you just say yes, you want to open other data. Now the first thing you need to do when you're opening the data is you need to switch this to an Excel. Otherwise, only SPSS files will show up. So here's the file I'm using for practice. So I'm just going to say open this Excel file. Now if you have more than one sheet in your data, it's going to give you more than one worksheet to open. This only has the one worksheet, but in case there's more than one, you just want to make sure you pull down this drop-down menu and open the right data. If the top row of your Excel sheet has the labels, you're going to want to make sure to click this, and you click OK. And it'll take a couple seconds for it to create the data file. There it is. So I'm practicing with data called need for cognition. So I have these 6 variables right here. And I already have them on the labels on a different sheet. So I'm just going to paste it right here for us. Now, if you open it from Excel, you'll pretty much get the label right here. And then your name is going to be the same thing without the spaces. With Qualtrics, it's probably going to be about the same. So what you want to do is you should relabel or rename your variables. And I would suggest you do it by dimension. So you have at least 3 dimensions. So these are all need for cognition questions. So I labeled them all need for cognition 6. But whatever your dimension is, you should label it by that. So family 1, family 2. You would just type it like this. And that is how you can remember which questions go with which dimension, which will be easier when you're analyzing your data. Okay, so I have these 6 items that I want to look at. You have to figure out which questions you have to reverse code. So we're going to discuss what we mean by reverse coding, so it's a refresher, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so when you reverse code it, I want you to think of the variable that you're trying to measure. And then I want you to think of the optimal participant who would score highest on that measure. So for example, if I'm studying need for cognition, that is a variable that measures people's desire to want to think. So I'm thinking of this person. This is Dan. And Dan likes to think, which means Dan is perfect for need for cognition. So when I think of my questions and I think someone who is extreme on this measure of liking to think, I have to decide based on my anchors how they would answer. So I gave Dan a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 was strongly disagree with the sentence, 5 was strongly agree. And here are all the items. So these items I prefer complex and simple questions. Danny would strongly agree on. I like to have responsibility of thinking. She would agree with. I like satisfaction of thinking long and hard. She would also score 5 on these. So all these questions, the higher value of the anchor represents more thinking. Now I also had reverse coded questions. So these questions she would score low on. Thinking is not my idea of fun. She should put a 1. I would rather do something that requires little thought. She would put a 1. I try to anticipate and avoid questions where you have to think. She would put a 1. So when you look at these together, all the questions that involve a 1, I need to change those anchors so that they now equal 5, because I want a higher value to always mean they like to think more. So that's what reverse coding is doing. It's taking these questions where a higher value meant less thinking, and I'm switching it over. So for all my questions, a higher value means more thinking. Now, you want to make sure that all your anchors were the same. If you switched the direction of your anchors, you need to look back at your questionnaire and make sure that you're not accidentally switching an anchor that was going in the opposite direction. So for example, maybe if I had this questionnaire and for some reason I made 1 strongly agree and 5 strongly disagree, well then I don't need to switch those items because I already did in the questionnaire. But for most cases, we try to encourage you putting anchors in the same direction because that's easier for the participant. So now in this case, I need to switch all these 1s to a 5. And I'm doing that overall for the questionnaire. So every participant, I'm switching their anchors. So if they put a 2 here, they should get a 4 for this question now. If they put a 5 for this question, I'm going to switch them to a 1. So we're going to show you how to do that. So we have the data, and the first thing I'm going to do is I need to look and make sure the data looks okay. So first of all, I have these nominals variables. These are not nominal. These are all numeric. So I want to switch my measure to scale, because these are all on a scale of 1 to 5. These are all numeric, which is also something I want. If they're not, they might be under string, which means it's text and not data. You want to make sure it's under numeric. And then, see in this case, if you look at the data, there's zeros. Now you might not have this. You might just have periods for the missing data, but I have zeros. So what I need to do is I need to tell SPSS, do not count those zeros. Those zeros don't mean anything. They decline to answer the question. So if a 0 means the missing data, I'm going to go into missing, and I'm just going to tell SPSS that's what 0 means. And I just copied and pasted that. You can do it manually as well. All right. So to reverse questions, first you have to remember which ones needed to be reversed. So 3 needs to be reversed, 4 needs to be reversed, and 5 needs to be reversed. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this once my computer stops freaking out. Come on, computer. Thank you. Okay. So the easiest way to do it one at a time, if I only had maybe one question that needed to be reversed, this is one way to do it. And basically all I'm doing is I'm looking at the number of anchors. I know I have 5 options. Remember, those zeros are missing data, so they don't count. So what I can do, see if I can move this up, is I'm going to go to data. If you can't see it, I can't tell if it's recording that. I move to data. Oh, I'm sorry, I go to transform, then compute variable, and this pops up. So this is how I would do it one question at a time. If I needed to reverse 3, I would put the number of anchors plus 1. So if I have 5 anchors, I would just put the number 6 in there. And then I would subtract from 6 my variable. So what it's going to do, it's going to make a new variable. And whatever the participant put for question 3, it's going to subtract that number from 6. I'm going to relabel it R so I know it's reverse coded. And then ncog 3. And then I press OK. And it takes a while. Okay, so basically the output is just telling me it worked. So you don't really have to look at that. But what you'll notice is now there's another variable here. And when I click on it, see all the 5s have become 1s. The 0s are missing. My 2s are 4s. My 4s are 2s. So everything looks as I wanted it to look. Except for this, there's a random 3 here, and that's a problem. I bet you that was supposed to be a 0, and I messed up in the data. That's a reason to double check your data. Okay, so overall this looks correct. Now that is the way to do it one at a time. There's another way where you can do it with multiple variables at once as long as they all have the same anchors. For this one, I would go to data, then I would go to, let me find it. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not data, I keep saying that. Go to transform. Then under transform, go to recode into different variables. So if I had 3, 4, and 5 all needed to be recoded, I'm going to put variable 3 in, I'm going to put variable 4 in, I'm going to put variable 5 in, and I'm going to rename them all. Need for cog, reverse 3. Oh, well that's 5, so I wanted to do that for this. And you press the change button. So R need cog 4, R need cog 5. Then I go to old and new values, and I manually change it. I want 1 to be 5, add it. I want 2 to be 4. I want 3 actually stays 3. 4 becomes 2. And 1 becomes 5. Whoops. I mean 5 becomes 1. Thank you, SPSS. So check it. They all change values. I press continue. Then I press OK. Then it takes its sweet time. There's the output telling me what it's doing. But once again, here are the variables, all switched for all 3 variables. Now remember, you can't do it that way unless they all have the same anchor. So they all are switching 5 to 1, 4 to 3. So if you have different anchors, you can't put those in the same variable grouping because then you're going to switch it to the wrong type of anchor. So that is how you reverse code the variables. I hope this helps. Good luck. Have a great day. Actually, one more thing. I'll show you how to export your output as a PDF. So here's output that actually, well, has older stuff on it. So this might take a while. But if I wanted to export it as a PDF file, I go to File, and there's an Export button. More should show up than that. It's not working. There it goes. You can export it as a Word, but sometimes that goes off the page. So that's why I like to export it as a PDF. And then just make sure you know where you're saving it. So desktop would be the easiest to remember. Come on, slow computer. Give it a label. Methods, output, project 1, 4, 7, 17, and save it. And then it will export. So then you should see it exporting. It can take a little longer to export the process, but that's how you export your output. Otherwise, you can just save it as an output, normal, save as. All right, have a great day. Bye.